Good morning, everybody. We are heading off to see Jasper's potential school. The same journey that we tried to do last week and ended in a smart car, getting up close and personal with the back of my Tesla. But hey ho, this time I'm sure it's going to be much better. Are you excited, Jasper, about seeing your new school?
Yeah. It's a new school, but it might not.
Okay, potential new school. Yes, we haven't decided, we haven't seen it yet, so yeah, so that's cool. And then we're going to talk about range and how much EV range is enough. Yeah. Because Tesla have just had the EPA rating for the long range plus version of the Model S increased to 402 miles, which is pretty good. This is the first production EV with more than 400 miles range. Of course, I imagine in the real world you're not going to get quite that much. But we'll pick this up again in a minute. Wow, SpaceX just blows my mind. So they did a pressure test on the, it's like a test tank, the SN7 test tank. So not a full-size Starship stack, just a sort of small weeny one. They got it to 7.6 bar and then the top sort of popped off, shall we say. Bit of the top did anyway, and the pressure was lost. And apparently they've repaired that already. This was like literally a couple of days ago. SpaceX are moving so quickly down at Boca Chica. It is just totally unlike any kind of rocket development the world has ever seen before. Amazing. I'm going to have to do an entire vlog post just on this one subject at some point, but not today, because today I want to talk about EV range. Right, they're picking up my car in a minute, which means I've got to get all my personal possessions out of it. I always find it fascinating, the kind of things people keep in their cars. Everything that's detachable, because you know that way it can't go missing. Oh, I can't believe how much stuff was in that car. Now I just need the new Tesla to turn up. It should be happening just about any minute now. Just like that, my car is gone, replaced with a grey one. It's 100D, so that's cool. Loads of range, which I'm probably not going to need, because here's the thing about range. Having a decent sized amount of distance you can go without thinking about charging is obviously an important sort of day-to-day usage thing to consider. But at the same time, how often do you really genuinely drive more than 100 miles away from your home and then turn around and come back without having an opportunity to charge, or needing to have lunch en route, or going to somebody else's house where you could charge if you had to for a little bit? Don't get me wrong, you're definitely going to want, I mean, I always used to say a minimum was 150 miles of any weather range, and I stick by that. You know, you really need to be able to go at least 150 miles and still have some buffer left over, and you should be able to do that no matter what is going on in the wider environment. When it comes to further than that, however, I don't really think it's all that necessary. I mean, certainly for the vast majority of people it isn't, because we don't drive that far that often. I mean, from here to our old house, where we still have some friends, is about 50, 60 odd miles, something like that. So if we were going to do a round trip, then obviously it would make sense to have a car that can do at least that amount of distance. And we do that, which is why the original Nissan Leaf was always such a pain, because if you had to go like say 100-mile round trip, you're only going to get sort of 70 odd miles. You definitely need to charge for like half an hour. And this is despite the fact that you're only really driving out for an hour and back for an hour. It's just too much charging for not enough driving. But when you have superchargers on motorway networks, and a base vehicle range that is over 200 miles at least, then you really don't have anything to worry about range-wise. You know, unless you just don't think about it at all. I mean, everyone has to think a little bit about how they fuel or charge their vehicle, don't they? Well, I suppose some people do run out of fuel in petrol and diesel cars, so I guess not everybody is going to find this transition easy. At least when it comes to an electric vehicle, they're quite good at sort of warning you when you're going to run out of power. I mean, certainly with a Tesla, if you try and go to a destination that is outside of your range, it will say, you can't do that, you need to charge, we need to find some superchargers en route for you. Whereas most petrol and diesel cars, if you're going to run out of fuel, they just kind of, a little light pops up and that's like it. Righty. Oh my goodness. Time for a healthy snack. Oh, chocolatey goodness. Anyway, so Tesla have now got their new Model S. No, well, they don't call it the 100D anymore, do they? Their new long range plus version of the Model S, I should say, now comes with a 402 mile EPA range, which is awesome. And they've achieved this not by increasing the size of the battery. It's basically weight savings. Less rolling resistance, because I think the wheels are a little bit narrower, 8.5 inches, and they've saved quite a bit of weight here and there. Now, not in one big go. It's not like they found one thing that they could suddenly make weigh 100 kilos less. But what they have done is taken a couple hundred grams off this, a couple hundred grams off that. You know, over time, it all adds up to something substantial. And they actually got quite a lot of these weight savings from the design and manufacturing process for Model 3 and Model Y. They've been able to sort of backfill some of that expertise in minimizing weight and therefore maximizing range. Although I think, to be honest, the rolling resistance from the wheels coupled with a sort of 2% change to efficiency on the drivetrain and a slightly more efficient battery pack and motor. I think the sort of the oil pump on the back motor used to be mechanical, now it's electrically powered, which apparently works better and is slightly more efficient. And these slight efficiency gains are what really make the difference, I think. The weight it's not irrelevant with an electric vehicle, but I think it's actually a bit less relevant than people realise, certainly when compared to something like rolling resistance or air resistance. These are the really big killers of range, which is why when it rains, it can cost you 20% of your range, because the rolling resistance is more if you've got water on the road, and obviously the air resistance is more if you've got to push through raindrops. One of the things that I do find particularly interesting though with Tesla is how they introduce their changes in a sort of continuous process. They take their active manufacturing lines and then make tweaks to the products that are coming off those lines sort of as they're working. It does remind me quite a lot of the way SpaceX are approaching the Starship manufacturing facility they're building in Boca Chica in Texas. It's that continuous improvement. Oh, we're not going to wait for the next model year. We're just going to crack on with it. It's a very different kind of car manufacturer that Tesla is becoming. Similarly to the way SpaceX is becoming a very different kind of aeronautics company. It's very difficult to fully appreciate how different the Tesla production system is to almost anything else out there, certainly in the automotive world. Quite fascinating. And that's, you know, partly what has enabled them to be the seller of the longest range production EV currently available. Obviously that's not going to last. Other car manufacturers are going to come out with greater ranges, although Tesla may well respond at some point. I remember Elon Musk saying he didn't really want to put a bigger battery pack in than 100 kilowatt hours. Doesn't really think anyone needs that, and I kind of agree with him. I don't think anyone needs that. But making the car more efficient is just the gift that keeps on giving. It makes it cheaper, it makes it lighter, it makes it handle better, it makes it accelerate faster because it's lighter. And of course then it increases range as well. Whereas if you just put a bigger battery pack in, yeah, you quickly wind up realising, oh, now I've got to upgrade the suspension a bit, it's got heavier, that's eating some range off, we'll put some more battery in. You wind up in almost a sort of a bit of a rocket equation problem, where you keep making the thing bigger and more inefficient in an attempt to make it go further. I've said my piece now. I don't think massively long ranges are needed. I think massively long ranges are very useful from a marketing standpoint. And I think to some extent that is the main reason why people want ranges over 300-400 miles. I know there are obviously sections of society that do want to be able to drive 1,000 miles without stopping, you know, the professional delivery driver types, but most people day to day don't need that sort of range. Most people don't need that sort of range year to year, honestly. It's great to see Tesla making strides forwards on the range though. Even though I don't think it really will make a practical difference to the vast majority of people, I do think it is important that they are seen to be continually moving forwards and improving their products over time. And that is quite clearly what they are about. All right, I hope you enjoyed today's video and found it interesting. If you have, remember to leave a like and share it and subscribe if you haven't already, and follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you don't already, and I will see you in the next episode of my vlog. Bye. As you're taking some video,
Yeah, no, it's only right.
might as well.
I always recommend that.
Well, I've also got a YouTube channel, so I can use some of the footage for that as well. I started shortly after I got my car, actually, because it was kind of, it's a channel about EVs and about, you know, what it's like to live and drive with them. It's not, I mean, not just that, obviously. I cover a lot of other stuff like SpaceX and things as well. Yeah, it's quite fun. It's just a little hobby because I mainly look after my son.
Okay.
That's my main job.